Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show, the podcast. Whew, we almost made it. MLB The Show 25 is less than 2 weeks away, especially if you're getting early access. By the way, I am running a giveaway to celebrate 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. Go to my Twitter page to check it out. If you're not following me on Twitter, my Twitter is linked in the YouTube description. You can go find that post. Running a little giveaway for a digital deluxe edition of the game, just to thank you guys and celebrate 5K. But today, before we can move forward, we have to look back. That's life. We're going to kind of analyze in its totality MLB The Show 24 and get a vibe of, the pulse of what the game was like. So thank you guys for being here as always. Love you guys. Let me transition here, if you're on YouTube, to this document page thing. I'm going to zoom my camera out just a hair. That looks great. This is what OBS looks like, by the way, for people who don't do streaming. And here we go. So I wrote an article on my website, showgazette.com. Please check it out. It's going to be a go-to source all throughout the life cycle of MLB The Show 25 and beyond. Simply titled A Final MLB The Show 24 Review. So I want to go through this review, add on some things, kind of, expand upon some stuff. And ultimately, by the end of this video, we're going to give MLB The Show 24 a final grade out of 10. Being reasonable, I know it's a hard thing for a lot of people to do, but being reasonable in the comments on YouTube down below, let me know your final verdict on MLB The Show 24. Final verdict out of 10. I want your number. Half scores are allowed. Not 4.27, but we could use half numbers. Give me your final score and why. Just curious. Want to get an idea of the community's pulse. So, here we go. MLB The Show 25 is nearly here with the game cycle of MLB The Show 24 coming to an end. Let's look back and review the game in its entirety. I did in its entirety. I included offline. I included some other stuff. Obviously, I'm not an offline guru, but I know enough about the changes made to the modes, and by seeing and reading about what's gone on, what people think about the changes and how it plays. So, that's where I'm coming from. Almost universally, MLB The Show 24 is one of the least celebrated games in the franchise history. I think we can all agree on that front. It was the second year of the now dead sets and seasons content model. The game and the structure of the content was so poor, it made them completely eliminate sets and seasons from existence. This plane of existence, it no longer exists. It's like it never happened. Franchise and Road to the Show received minimal improvements, and the UI user interface looked like a flashbang went off in your living room. Thankfully, I think that has been updated and changed for MLB The Show 25. All of the mocks look like you can actually have a semi-dark mode on your game. Is it fair to call MLB The Show 24 the worst installment in the game's history? Probably not. A lot of people, and here's the interesting part about grading video games specifically, and content-driven video games like sports games specifically. Some people will value gameplay experience a lot higher than they value content. Some people will value content a lot higher than they value gameplay experience. So, people could look at the same exact game from two different angles and have completely different scores. That's also life. But, Immortals really rub people the wrong way. That game is probably one of the worst received in history. MLB The Show 23, was not exactly beloved either, though I think 24 was a rung below. And there were games where gameplay was so critically awful that it made enjoying the decent content hard. So it's tough. It is very difficult. It would, in my opinion, be almost impossible to put together an accurate ranking of all MLB The Show titles. I'd be very interested if someone wanted to give it a go. But MLB The Show 24 would probably be in the bottom 5. And maybe a little lower than that, but I'm just being conservative because I'm trying to just think offhand. But we'll get into that. So with MLB The Show 25, just about a month away at the time of writing, now it's about 2 weeks away, it's time to give a final review. Let's talk offline modes. SDS touted significant narrative changes to Road to the Show, though those were largely focused on the addition of women ball players. And even though adding women into the game is a good thing, the narrative changes didn't really add a ton of life or immersion into the mode. The progression system, which has been overhauled, TBD how it actually plays, but it's been overhauled. The progression system lacked, making Road to the Show a monotonous slog much of the time. As for franchise, there were positive changes that we should celebrate. Custom game entry, which allowed you to customize when you enter games, pretty self-explanatory, was a huge addition for franchise lovers and people who don't necessarily want to play every single pitch of a 162-game season, plus playoffs. And then franchises that go beyond 1 year. Imagine playing every pitch, every inning of every game for a 10-year franchise. You'd still be doing it on MLB The Show 20 at this point. But franchise still lacks so much of the charm and the behind-the-scenes stuff it needs. MLB The Show fans want to be able to customize everything. Normally, that is ridiculous when you ask for the moon and the stars, but in franchise, you should be able to do that. I want to be able to set the prices of hot dogs and chicken buckets. I want to set ticket prices. I want to manage corporate partnerships. I want to add seating. I want to be able to do anything and everything possible within franchise mode. Because in my view, franchise mode should not just be what happens on the field. Yes, front office stuff counts in that conversation. That's on the field related because those decisions impact the players in the lineup and things like that. I want to impact everything. I want to impact a promotional schedule. I want to hire staffing. Like I want to go all in on franchise because then I'm in. I'm a Diamond Dynasty head. Longtime viewers of the channel know that. I want desperately for Road to the Show and franchise to be good so I can take breaks from Diamond Dynasty to play modes that satisfy my baseball itch, but are a little more leisurely. Franchise and Road to the Show right now do not do that for me at all because they're not enough. They're not immersive. I want to be immersed. I want to feel like I have stake in the game. And then to even extend, like I want to be able to make 3-team trades. I want to trade salaries. I want to have international free agency. Like, none of this should be too much to ask for. Like, I know it all adds up. In its totality, it's a lot to ask for. But if we're talking about a franchise mode, all of those things should be there. What I'm happy about, looking forward a little bit to MLB The Show 25, is that they really seem to emphasize, that's the word I was trying to find, emphasize the foundation of what franchise should be. Logical improvements, contract improvements, negotiation changes, market setting changes. Like, those are important base level things for franchise. And if those work appropriately in 25, I think we get tons of franchise improvements in 26 and 27. Just to get it to a point where it's fully immersive. That's all I'm asking for. Let's talk Diamond Dynasty now. And we don't have to harp on a ton of this because if you play Diamond Dynasty, we all know the issues with Diamond Dynasty. Seeing as MLB The Show 24 was the final straw for sets and seasons, that tells you just about everything you need to know about DD. Like I just said. In fact, there's a weird corner of my brain that actually wants to celebrate MLB The Show 24 as the game that killed sets and seasons. Because if sets and seasons were even mediocre this year, I think we'd still have it in 25. But the community's reaction was so united that it was so bad that we killed it. So, hey, pat on our backs. We did it. The content was boring. Combine that, with the stale bones of Diamond Dynasty, as in there are no new game modes, and that made the entire experience feel repetitive. This was probably the least I've played Diamond Dynasty in my lifetime. I'm usually someone who sinks, like, thousands of hours into MLB The Show. And I don't think I have any of the other MLBs installed on my game right now. On my PlayStation right now, I don't. But I'm not even going to hit I'm not even going to hit 900 hours of MLB The Show 24. And for a lot of people, that's an exorbitant amount. I get that. But you have to understand, I make content on this game. I work from home, so it's on in the background. This is my hobby. This is my fun thing to do. So it's a lot. But I've exceeded sometimes close to double this before. So, it was not a fun, pleasant game to play. The gameplay itself was actually okay in terms of in-game. Not perfect, but fine. The content, though, was just... I didn't care for it. While SDS deserves a hat tip for coming up with sets and seasons and taking a massive risk by using it for 2 years, which they had to do because one unsuccessful year was not truly enough to gauge how it was. It's a small sample size. The fallout of that content style created little reason to jump on for every content drop. Why would I grind for a 99 that I can't use in a month? Or even, why would I rearrange my personal life to grind for a 99 when there will be another 99 coming out next week that's just as good, if not better, at the same position? That's why the power creep model works well for Ultimate Team modes. It provides incentive to play. Diamond Dynasty had little incentive to play this year. Ultimate Team modes need to provide their consumers, their user base, their player base incentive. If your team is stuck at an 85 or 86 overall, you're trying to, make it better, you can't figure out why you can't find a second baseman to use, and then they drop an 88 second baseman, you're like, oh my god, I gotta get him. That's the improvement my team needs. You have incentive to play. Or, let's say you skip a week. You skip 2 weeks, you're busy, you're on vacation. Life happens. Vacation is something you should take. It doesn't really matter about that in-between content you missed. You come back on, grind the most current power creep content, and you are crept up to the rest of the class. And then you just do that other stuff passively to fill out your binder. Sets and seasons, in my head, in another sports game, could probably work. Or it would have to be totally revamped and restructured to work in MLB The Show. I can see why SDS thought it could work. And part of me thinks if it worked well, it'd actually be fun. But power creep is ultimately the way to go. It just makes too much sense. Diamond Dynasty being stale for the last few years had nothing to do with the power creep. It had a lot to do with a lack of new game modes, and maybe a lack of innovation in the content drops themselves. Not the method in which it was dropping, but just the content drops themselves. So, Diamond Dynasty, big ol' flop this year. Other stuff. I love the other stuff category. User interface was really way too bright. Just wanted to double down on that. The Diamond Dynasty lineup screen is a travesty. Yeah, it stinks. I mean, I don't even know where to start. So I'm in left field right now. You guys can't see it because you're looking at my desktop. But if I hit all the way to the right, it goes to the lineup screen. I need it to siphon through my entire roster picture page first. I want everything on the same screen again. I want my lineup screen right next to the diamond. It's a small thing and it's meaningless, but it's all about user experience, and the lineup screen was not a great user experience. I'm in the minority in disliking captains, and I understand that. But can we talk about the switch hitting captain? The switch hitting captain got nerfed big time. So it was less impactful in the last few months. But when it first dropped, I mean, talk about one of the most brain-dead things SDS has done. I understand they were trying to really make captains touch every corner of the game. Young guns captain, 30-30 captain, no-hitter captain, this, that captain. Captains should just be teams. They should just be theme teams. They should just be the Braves captain, the Marlins captain, the Padres captain. I think that is the best way to utilize captains. You eliminate a lot of the weirdness. I see a lot of people talking about managers instead of captains. I guess I don't hate that. It doesn't impact your lineup as much because you can use the best versions of whatever player you want and have the manager be the boost. I just don't know how that would work from a licensing standpoint and getting all their rights. It's a lot of rights to get. And I think it would be weird if we had an Aaron Boone Yankees captain and then some fill-in create a character Blue Jays captain, or Blue Jays manager, rather, because they couldn't get the rights to the Blue Jays manager. So, I don't know. It's not a hateful idea. I just logistically don't know if it's possible because that's a lot of money to now get 30 players or 30 managers as his rights. I don't know. But it's something to think about. And then moving forward, there still aren't enough legends available for like 75% of the MLB teams. And adding managers would further hinder our ability to do that. Unless getting Aaron Boone's manager rights also lets us have his player rights. I think that's the same thing. For captains to work appropriately, especially theme team captains. For the power creep to work appropriately. For team affinity, if it comes back, to work appropriately. There need to be more legends, man. Like, for every team. For, like, every single team, there have to be more legends. I understand the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Mets, the Dodgers will probably always have more legends than everybody else, the Braves, both because of their histories and because they spend in free agency. When teams spend in free agency, they have more player movement, so inevitably more players will fit on more teams. Like, for example, if the intent was to get Curtis Granderson as a Tigers player, as a legend, because that's where he started his career, the Yankees traded for him and kept him. And, like, you know, so teams that make a lot of moves are going to have more legends. That's unavoidable. But the Tampa Bay Rays, the Colorado Rockies, the Marlins, I know they don't have long histories, but they should have more legends. Even if they're B-tier legends. That's not an insult. Sometimes those players can be fun. Like a random reliever who had a 5-year peak. I'd argue we should get more of those for every team. That makes bullpens better. Those are the things I want moving forward. So my verdict, if we're being fair and calling a solid game a 6 out of 10, I think that's where my head is at. Like, if I enjoyed a game but didn't love it, I'd be like, it's a 6 out of 10. I would say MLB The Show 24 is a 4.5 out of 10. MLB The Show 23, for context, was a 5. So, like, a stage below a solid game. Maybe that's a little harsh, but I look at, like, what reason do I have to get on the game? Do I need to get on the game? Do I feel pulled to play? And I really didn't feel that for much of this year. So I think that's where my grade comes from, and I think that's honest. I hope 25 is at least a 6. I'd say given the way the hype machine has been working for MLB The Show 25, if it's only a 6, we might have a problem. I think it needs to be a 7. The goodwill train needs to start turning the other way. But I'm very curious now. So let's, I don't know. Let's just go to the homepage of the Show Gazette, where you can see content reviews, gear and accessories, pro tips, opinions, and so much more. What do you guys think of MLB The Show 24? Being honest, you're allowed to like parts of it. So if you liked something, tell me. If you hated something, tell me. What's your grade? How much confidence do you have in 25? Let's have a conversation in the comments. A nice one, a cordial, respectful one. I have hopes. I've liked what I've seen so far. We're going to see Diamond Dynasty information today, Tuesday, and then more on Thursday. So I'm anxious. Because, as you guys know, the Diamond Dynasty stuff is what I care most about, though, as I said up front, or at least earlier, I need Franchise or Road to the Show to be good, too. I need our offline friends to enjoy the game, and I need excuses to play those offline modes. Because a healthy title ecosystem, like a healthy MLB The Show ecosystem, includes good content and features and gameplay and logic in every aspect of the game. Because it's just good for the community. And it's good for the individual, who now has options to do multiple things within the game. So that's where I'm at. MLB The Show 24, my final verdict, 4.5 out of 10. And again, that might be harsh. But I also view it nearly impossible to get an 8, 9, or 10 for most games. Like, Baldur's Gate for me is like a 9. And that's one of my favorite games I've played in years. And it takes a lot to get that high. So I would, the average spectrum of games for me is really between like a 3 and like a 7. You know, if it's a 1, it means the game literally wasn't complete. If it's a 2, something was so broken it couldn't be fixed. So like a 4.5, yeah, it's on the lower end, but it's, you know, it's a lot closer to the middle than it is to like complete absolute horse crap. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. That's going to be the end of this episode of the show, the podcast. More content coming this week, of course, and look out next week for content leading into 25. Love you guys. See you next time.